Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I've received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, how often should I work out each week in order to see results? Well, okay, so this will depend on what your goals are. Okay. So if your goal is just to maintain overall health and well-being, my recommendation to you, twice a week in the gym, doing weights. Outside the gym, move, walk, run, bicycle, whatever it can do just to get your heart rate up. Okay. So that's great for just overall health and well-being, aka maintenance level, right? Now, if you want to notice, if you want to see noticeable changes in your physique and you want to feel changes, my recommendation to you then is to take your workout volume up to 3 to 5 to potentially even 6 times a week. The people that train with me, whether it's in-house or online, who are in the gym 3 to 5 times a week, are the ones that really start to see dramatic changes in their physique. They feel the changes in their performance, whether it's their strength in the gym or outside the gym. Okay. So again, it will depend on what your goals are. And you really have to be honest with yourself as to what you can commit to. Because I've had a lot of people over the years say, I want to be in the gym 5 days a week. I'm like, well, that's great, but is it realistic? Because if it's not, you're setting yourself up for failure. So you have to manage your expectations and you have to set realistic goals. Okay. So if you want to see noticeable changes in your physique, my recommendation is to put together a training split that makes sense. So if you're training 3 days a week, that could look something like chest and back day one, shoulders and arms day two, and then legs and abs day three. If you're training 4 days a week, you could maybe split that up a little bit more with doing chest and back on one day. You could give shoulders their own workout with abs. You can give arms their own workout, and then you can give legs their own workout. If it's a 5 day split, well, now you have more options. You could go chest one day, back day two, shoulders day three, arms day four, legs day five, right? And throw in abs along the way. So there's all kinds of different training sequences that you can put together. But the most important thing is what you're doing in the gym. Okay. So if you're in the gym 3 days a week, you can see, like I said, you'll see changes in your physique. Of course, some people who train 3 days a week actually get better results than people who train 5 days a week. It's because what they're doing in the gym. The people who are in the gym 3 days a week are sometimes training harder. They're training more intensely than the people who are in 5 days a week. I talked about this last week, how there's a lot of people out there who say they're in the gym for 2 hours, but they're not training. They're on their phone, they're talking, they're taking prolonged periods of time in between sets of rest. So they're not getting results. So just like I had a question last week about someone asked me, what's the best duration of each workout? I said, well, it's not about the amount of time you're in the gym, it's what you're doing in the gym. So focus more on what you're doing. So if you know you can only get to the gym 3 times a week, that's fine. And you will see change in your physique and you'll feel changes, of course. But just make sure you're training. Okay. So you want to cut out all distractions. So no texting, no cruising Instagram, playing on TikTok, none of that stuff, talking to people in the gym. Stay focused on each set, get in and out. I've said my workouts are about 45, 50 minutes max. And I like to train every day. And that's just for me. Okay. But a lot of people, they can't commit to going to the gym every day, and that's fine. So set realistic expectations, manage your goals. Okay. So you want to make sure that your goals are realistic as well. And you want to make sure that you're constantly checking in on, okay, am I achieving the goals that I've set out to achieve? And, if you have to take a step back and go, I can't train 4 times a week, that's fine. But then you have to set new goals. You can't say, well, I can only commit to going to the gym once or twice a week, but I want a six pack and, 22-inch arms. It's probably not going to happen. Okay, so it's like anything in life. The more work you put in, the better your results are going to be. But more work doesn't necessarily mean longer duration, nor does it mean train every day in the gym like I do. I just like to do that just for overall myself, my sanity, just to keep me going and motivated throughout the years. It's no longer necessarily an aesthetic goal. It's just more for me. It's more just to keep me on top of my business and just makes me feel good. Okay. But again, I like going to the gym. A lot of people don't like going to the gym. So overall health and well-being, my recommendation, twice a week. If you're looking to see noticeable changes in your physique, 3 to 5 times a week. If you're trying to train for a particular competition or maybe an event like a wedding, my recommendation, you want to be in the gym 6 days a week, okay? And give yourself at least one day off just to rest, let the body recover, and then you don't burn out and you go back feeling fresh the following week. All right. Nick, can I lose weight just by working out without changing my diet? Well, again, this will depend on what your diet looks like, right? So if your diet consists of donuts, muffins, burgers, fries, pizza, chips, and you start working out for the first time ever, you're going to lose weight, of course, because now you're burning more calories. But if your diet's already fairly clean and you start working out and you say, I want to lose another 10 pounds. You'll probably lose some more weight, but because your diet's already fairly clean, you're not going to lose a dramatic amount of weight, right? Because someone who's eating burgers, chips, fries, pizza, and all that stuff, they're most likely somewhat obese. So any form of activity is going to help them burn more calories, and it's going to be easier for them to lose that initial weight. But if you're someone who's already fairly lean and you're starting out working weight, or starting with working with weights, and you're following a clean diet, you'll probably lose like 5 or 6 pounds, but you'll probably also add on 5 or 6 pounds of muscle. So that's why I tell people don't just focus solely on the scale because the scale can be deceiving. Okay, so focus more on body composition, focus more on your measurements. Constantly, I always tell people they should be constantly taking progress photos on a weekly basis. They don't have to post them up on Instagram for the world to see. They can just post them on their own phone or just have them on their own phone, okay, just for themselves, and they can do comparison shots every few weeks to see how they're looking, okay. But my recommendation, though, is if you are starting with weights, just make sure that you're at least following a somewhat clean diet. Because here's the thing: if you're training with weights and your diet is shit, the results that you do get, like I said, you will get some results because you're doing something new for your body. You're putting your body through physical exertion that's not used to, especially if you're someone who's fairly sedentary. So you will see some change, but there's going to be a layer of fat covering that change. So, like I said, you might see, oh, I got bigger arms now if you're a guy, right? And but there's a layer of fat covering those arms, right? Because your diet's on check. Okay. Or if you're a woman and you're building up your glutes and you're like, oh, wow, my butt's lifted. But if there's a layer of fat or cellulite over that butt because your diet's on check, you're going to see them, but the results, but you're not going to really see the dramatic change. So that's why I talked about the importance of making sure the diet goes in hand with the training. The people that have dialed in their diet along with their training program exceed their own expectations in the gym. Like, wow, I can take my physique to that type of level. And it's because you are paying attention to what you're doing in the kitchen and in the gym. Okay. So they're both equally important. So my recommendation is if you are starting off brand new to the gym, brand new to weight training, forget about the aesthetics for a second. Just think, hey, if I go to the gym on oatmeal and let's say a scoop of protein powder and a tablespoon of peanut butter, my performance is going to be better as opposed to if I have a bowl of granola or a muffin. So it's also how you're fueling your body for your own workouts and your post-workout recovery. So that's important too. So if you don't even think about aesthetics for a second and just think, okay, if I want to feel better in the gym and I want to lift heavier weights and I want to take shorter rest periods, my diet has to be dialed in because if my diet's dialed in, my training will be better. If my training's better, I'm going to get even better results, both physically and mentally. Okay. So that's why I tell people it's so important to clean up the diet. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. I've never met anyone, myself included, who's got a 100% clean diet. Absolutely not. It doesn't exist. But if you can at least ensure that 85 to 90% of the foods that are going into your body are clean, you're going to see change with your physique if you're training properly. Absolutely. So I wouldn't recommend just going to the gym and just eating whatever you like because, like I said, you will see some results, but you'll see better results if you dial in your diet. All right. Nick, how can I stay motivated when I don't feel like working out? This is a question I get in quite often. I probably get at least once a month, and it's a problem for a lot of people. And my answer is always the same. If you are having a hard time getting yourself to the gym, you need to hire a personal trainer. Okay? Because this is a problem for you. It's an obstacle for you. You can't surpass this obstacle. So at that point, you need to think, okay, well, if I can't get myself to the gym, I need someone that's going to hold me accountable to get myself to the gym. And this is why a lot of people hire personal trainers because paying for a session and making not even just paying for a session, but making an appointment with someone else who's waiting for you, you don't want to let that person down. Okay. You also don't want to pay for a session that you're not partaking in. So having that accountability is huge. And I'm sure if you took a poll and were to ask my clients, I would say at least probably 75, 80% of them don't like going to the gym. But because they've booked sessions with myself or one of the trainers, they're accountable for going. So they go. And once they're there, they'll all tell you this too. Once they're there, about 15, 20 minutes in, it's not so bad. Okay. It's just the initial getting themselves to the gym. I always say 80% of the battle is getting yourself to the gym. Once you're at the gym, it's fine. You're good. Okay. But if you're having that problem with motivation, a personal trainer can make all the difference. If you can't afford to work with a personal trainer, my recommendation is to then join a small group class. Okay. But if you are someone who's brand new to the gym, that is something I don't recommend because you're not going to get that one-on-one instruction that you so desperately need. Okay. No one's there going to be there to correct your form and technique if you're in a group class of 30 people. Okay, so you're going to benefit more from working in a one-on-one capacity. So yeah, that's my recommendation. I say it time and time again, hire a trainer. People can tell you, well, you can go on YouTube and watch motivational videos or just go do it and stop being a snowflake. And look, I get it. It's hard for a lot of people. It's a mental barrier for a lot of people just to get to the gym. It can be an intimidation factor too. A lot of people don't like going to the gym because they don't feel good about their bodies or they don't know what they're doing. So they get a lot of anxiety in the gym. And so having a trainer with you by your side that's going to guide you through the workout, that makes it a lot easier. I have a lot of clients that have told me over the years that they would never go to a gym by themselves because they feel so intimidated. But having myself with them, they feel better. They feel more confident because they know they're doing a workout that makes sense. And they know that I'm correcting their form and technique. So they don't feel like they're doing something wrong or they're going to injure themselves. Okay. It's like fast tracking your results. So if you're lacking that motivation, hire a personal trainer. Again, I've said this time and time again, it's going to be the best ROI you ever invest in yourself, on your health, your fitness, and your physique. Okay. Nick, how can I build muscle without gaining fat? Diet and training. And what I mean by that is how you diet and how you train. Okay. I was talking about this with a client earlier today, and I was talking about why I'm a huge advocate of high volume training, as in high volume, lots of sets, lots of reps, short duration of rest periods in between sets. I'm never going to be that personal trainer that says, we're going to go for your one rep max today. I've never done that with anyone. I'm not that trainer that teaches people to be powerlifters. Okay. People who come to work with me, most people that come to work with me want to change their physiques. They want to see transformation in their physiques. They want to lose fat. They want to build muscle. They want to become more overall healthy and fit. And I tell them, I'm like, if these are your goals, you want to incorporate high volume training because high volume training is going to create better muscular endurance, better cardiovascular endurance. It's going to preserve your joints and tendons because you're putting pressure on the muscle bellies and not the joints. Okay. And you're going to build that solid, lean, dense muscle that you're looking to achieve. At the same time, you're going to help lose your body fat because you're moving more. How often do you see lean powerlifters? Not very often. Go look at a strongman competition. Most are pretty chubby. Most have high body fat percentages because that's their goal is to lift the most amount of weight. So they got to eat a lot of food and they got to rest for long periods of time and do that 1 to 3 reps. Whereas if you look at more bodybuilders, bodybuilders train with high volume, longer duration of sets. So they're doing that 12 to 15 reps. Um, they're doing very short duration rest periods, so 30 seconds, 45 seconds max. And they usually train one muscle group for each workout. And then they rest that muscle group for 7 days. So if you want to build solidly and dense muscle without adding on additional fat, I'd recommend training like a bodybuilder. As far as the diet is concerned, I'd recommend eating like a bodybuilder. You don't see many fat bodybuilders walking around, right? And I'm talking about men and women here. And you don't have to be someone who competes on stage and gets a fake tan and oils yourself all up to be a bodybuilder. If you're building your body, if you're trying to improve your overall health, well-being, and aesthetics, guess what? You're a bodybuilder. You're in the gym. You're building your physique. You're a bodybuilder, man or woman, doesn't matter. You're a bodybuilder. So train like a bodybuilder, eat like a bodybuilder. Smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day. As I said in the previous question, 85 to 90% of the foods that go into your body should be clean. If you're consuming foods that are complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, lean proteins, and you're training properly, you're not going to get fat. You're going to lose fat. Okay. But if you're having simple carbohydrates and you're having saturated fats, trans fats, and you're having fatty proteins, you're going to get fat. If you're having tons of sugar, you're going to get fat. Okay. So the diet and the training again go hand in hand. So weightlifting does not make you gain fat. That is a misconception. There's no science backing that data. If you're training the way I just said, like a bodybuilder, high volume training, minimal rest periods, your diet's dialed in, You don't have to worry about putting on fat. It's not going to happen. Okay. But if you're training really like a bodybuilder and you're eating like a slob, you're still going to put on fat. And if you're training like a power lifter and your diet's really clean, you're going to put on a little bit of fat. Okay. Because the two go hand in hand. So you want to put on lean muscle without the body fat, train like a bodybuilder, eat like a bodybuilder, look like a bodybuilder. Okay. And again, I don't mean look like a bodybuilder on stage, fake tan and oil. Lean muscle, solid physique, very low body fat. That to me is a bodybuilder. Right. Okay. Nick, should I do cardio before or after lifting weights? So if the goal is to lose fat, my recommendation is to do your cardio after weights or first thing in the morning in a fasted state, as in no food in your system whatsoever. Okay, why? So when you do cardio in a fasted state, whether that be first thing in the morning upon waking, okay, get out of bed, go do cardio, or immediately after your weight workout, chances are you're going to be utilizing fat as your primary fuel source. So it's just a more efficient way to burn body fat. It's working smarter rather than harder. Now, that's not saying that if you do your cardio after having a meal that you're not going to lose fat. You will lose some fat because you're doing cardio. Yeah, you're going to lose some fat, but you're going to utilize those carbohydrates that you just had from that meal first as your primary fuel source. So you're not going to lose as much fat as quickly. So it's just a more effective approach to doing your cardio. And I talked about when I used to compete. I mean, there's no way I was doing fasted cardio because my days would start sometimes 4:30, 5 a.m. in the morning. So I wasn't going to get up at 3 to do cardio. I mean, sometimes I did, but rarely. So what I would do is I would train in the afternoon, and after my 45-minute workout, I would do my cardio for 30, 45 minutes. I mean, sometimes 60 minutes as I got closer to a show. Because at that point, I was utilizing fat as my primary fuel source because my pre-workout meal, which was usually something very small, like a third of a cup of oats, scoop of protein powder, that was gone. I burnt that off in my workout. So now I was utilizing fat as my primary fuel source, which allowed me to burn fat more efficiently. Okay. So my recommendation, if the goal is to lose body fat, do your cardio after your training. Okay. If you're just looking for overall fitness and health, I see no problem with doing cardio before the weights. The only issue I've noticed with people who do cardio before the weight, especially if it's super intense cardio, like you're going for a really like 30-minute run, by the time you get to the weights, you're fairly gassed. So again, if you don't really care about how much muscle you put on, that's fine because you're still working your heart, you're working your muscular endurance, you're going to lift some weights. But I feel that people who do cardio after their weight training or earlier in the day away from their weight training, let's say they work out at 3 in the afternoon, but they do their cardio at 6 a.m., that's fine because they've had like 3 or 4 meals in between. The people that tend to do the cardio though, right before the weights, they're not able to lift as much. And if they're not able to lift as much, you're not going to build as much muscle, right? So that's why I recommend for most people to do their cardio either in a fasted state or immediately after a workout, regardless if the goal is to burn fat or not, just for overall performance in the gym. All right. Okay. Nick, should women train differently than men in order to build muscle? No. I train men and women the exact same. Okay. But I take a customized approach to each individual that I work with. So I'm working with a man and a woman, okay? Different training sessions, different goals. I'm still going to give them both barbell squats. I'm still going to give them both barbell bench press. I'm still going to give them both a lat pull down. But if one person is, let's say, weaker in their lower half, I might give them more lower body work, more detailed workouts towards the lower body. Maybe I'll throw in more sets for hamstrings, right? More sets for glutes. If the other person is lacking in the upper body, I'll give them more attention to detail in the upper body. I'll give them more attention to their chest workouts, more attention to their delts, their back, right? So you have to really look at the person you're working with, assess his or her physique, look at their strengths, look at their weaknesses, and then put together a program that's customized for them. Okay. So I work with a lot of women who, if it was up to them, they'd be training legs every day in the gym with me. And I say, well, no, you don't want to do that because you don't want to have this great muscular lower body and these tiny little arms and weak little shoulders. It doesn't look good. You have a muscular imbalance. So you want to make sure that you have perfect symmetry. So let's focus on your legs. And if that's a weak spot for you, we'll still give it more attention to detail, but we're not going to neglect your upper body. It's the same thing I say to the guys, because I have a lot of guys that don't want to train their legs. I'm like, that's up to you. You're an adult. You can make that choice. I can't force you to train your legs. But to me, you're going to look ridiculous with this nice upper body, big arms, detailed deltoids, protruding pecs. and he's tiny little stick legs. To me, that just looks silly, right? So I'm like, why not create perfect symmetry and make sure that you're training every muscle group? But of course, if you're genetically gifted in the upper half, but you're lacking in the lower half, give more attention to detail to your lower half, right? I talked about in the past how I've always had a very, in my opinion, a very weak back. Because when I used to compete, judges always used to criticize my back. They say, you need to get a bigger back. Your back is not big enough. Your back is not detailed enough. So I went back to the drawing board and I'm like, I've got a great chest. My delts are fine. I've got striations in my glutes when I'm on stage. My legs are fine. So my back is my weak point. So what did I do? I gave my back two workouts a week. One was a row day, one was a pull day. Guess what? It worked. I didn't neglect my other muscle groups though, but I just didn't give them the same amount of volume. Okay. I trained my chest once a week. I trained my arms once a week. I trained my legs once a week, my shoulders once a week. Okay. I've always had pretty good abs, so I didn't really even train my abs. But when it came down to my weaker muscle groups, I just gave them more attention to detail. And so it's the same thing for men and women. I don't feel that you should train a woman differently than a man. No, absolutely not. In fact, I have co-ed group classes. The men and women do the same exercises. Okay, so we're built the same. At the end of the day, both men and women both have biceps, both have triceps, both have delts, both have pecs, both have glutes, hamstrings, quads. So why would you train differently because of your gender? Okay. Where you should train differently, though, is based on your physical limitations and your genetics. That's what you need to take into consideration, not your gender. All right. Okay. A few more questions here. Nick, how can I track my progress without obsessing over the scale? Well, as I mentioned earlier, body composition. How are your clothes fitting you? Okay. How is your strength in the gym? Is it going up? Have you hit a plateau? How do you feel? Okay. These are great ways to measure progress. Another thing too is like go back and I don't keep a journal, but I do recommend that some people keep journals because some people have a hard time remembering of how many workouts they got in a month. I say go back and look over the last month, or even go back and look over the last week. How many workouts did you get in this week? Oh, this week I only got two. Okay. The goal next week should be let's get at least three. And then you get three. Okay, the goal next week is going to be to get four and maybe two cardio sessions. Did that. So that's another way of progressing without even looking at the scale, without even looking at your physique. You're progressing. You're working out more. You're exercising more. Now maybe look at the diet. Hey, you know what? Last week I had three cheat meals. My goal this week is only to have two. Great, you did that. Now my goal is only to have one. I want to go a whole week without a cheat meal. That's my new goal. So you're progressing with your diet. Okay. So progress shouldn't necessarily be defined as how much weight you're losing on a scale or what your waist size is or how big your arms are. It should also be how you're performing overall in the gym and in life. And that's what I've always told clients. I'm like, gauge your progress based on how you feel, but also how you look, but more importantly, your overall health and well-being, your strength in the gym, your quality of sleep, and just overall like your mental state. Do you feel better about yourself? Are you thinking more clearly? Are you more productive throughout the day? If you are, you're progressing. Okay. So I've talked about in the past how when I do weekly check-ins and bi-weekly check-ins with clients, I do ask them for their weight. And I always tell them, like, don't worry though. If the weight goes up, the weight doesn't go down, don't stress. I'm just asking for your weight just so I have a general idea of where you're sitting weight-wise. Okay. But honestly, the number on a scale is it's not even in my top three factors that I take into consideration when I'm making revisions to people's plans. Unless they're competing, they have to make a weight class. Well, then yeah, I have to take that into consideration. But if they're just, again, they're training for overall health, well-being, and they want to transform their physique, then no. Okay. I look at their bodies. I ask them for photos. I ask them, how's your strength in the gym? How's your quality of sleep? How are you feeling mentally? And if these people are telling me, I feel really good. I'm getting my workouts in and weights are going up in the gym. My strength is good. I'm like, great, you're progressing. So don't become obsessed with the scale. And there's certain people that I recommend to not even look at the scale. And I'll tell you right now, not that I have a problem with looking at the scale, but I haven't looked at a scale since 2020, my last show. So I don't even look at the scale. I go by how I look. I go by how I feel. When I used to compete, I would have to go by weight because if I was trying to make a weight class, so I would have to monitor my weight. But now that I don't compete, I don't even look at the scale. So it doesn't matter to me because at the end of the day, even if I'm 300 pounds, as long as I am maintaining a 30-inch waist and I'm feeling very good and I'm having low body fat, I don't care what my weight is. It doesn't matter to me. I don't even care what my body fat percentage is. Okay, as long as I can see my abs, I feel good. Okay, so that's my goal. So someone else's goal is, as long as I can still fit into my size 35 jeans, I feel good. Great. When you can no longer fit into those 35 jeans, then we got a problem. All right. So don't become obsessed with the scale. Try to focus on other forms of progression. And it's not always going to be your physique. Like I said, it could be you're getting more activity in, your strength's going up in the gym, you're sleeping better, you're feeling better. So don't just focus on the aesthetics, focus on the internal as well. Okay. Um, Okay. Nick, do I have to be sore for a workout to be effective? No. Listen, beginners are always going to be sore. I could take a beginner and put them in the gym with me for half an hour and they'll be sore for a week. Like, oh my God, that was crazy. I'm like, well, you're taking your body through different planes and ranges of motion with weights that it's never done before or hasn't done in a very long time. So of course you're going to be sore. Okay. That soreness, we call it DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. And it usually occurs not necessarily the day after you trained, but the day after that. So that 48 hours, especially if legs. Okay. So sometimes when people work with me, the next day they're sore, but it's usually the day after that, that 48-hour mark, where they're really sore. And if you're a beginner, there's nothing you can do. You can't have Epsom salt baths. You can't go for massages. I mean, you can do all these things, but they're not going to help. Okay. You have to go through it. Okay. It's kind of like you have to earn your stripes. You have to go through the soreness, but it does get easier. You talk to anyone who trains legs with me and they go on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks and they come back and do their first leg workout, they're sore for a week. Guaranteed they're sore for a week. And it's not that they had a better workout with me. It's just because they haven't trained those muscles in 2 or 3 weeks. So imagine someone who hasn't trained them in 2 or 3 months, or someone who's never trained them. Of course, they're going to be sore. Okay. But for someone who's an avid lifter who works out every day, there's going to be some soreness. Like whenever I train my legs, I'm always sore for 3 or 4 days afterwards, but it's manageable. It's not like, oh my God, I can't move, or it hurts to sit up, or it hurts to lay down. No, I can move. But if I didn't train my legs for, 5, 6 weeks, which is going to happen in the next few weeks when I go into my hernia surgery, I know that first workout back is going to be brutal. And I know my legs are going to be sore for 2 weeks after that one leg workout, even if I'm not pushing the same amount of weight that I'm normally pushing. Okay. Because again, my body has been stagnant. It's not doing those squats. It's not doing those lunges. It's not doing leg press, hack squats, leg extensions, straight leg deadlifts. So of course I'm going to be sore. But don't kid yourself and think that just because you're more sore, you're getting a better workout. No, not true at all. That's kind of like that question I received a few weeks ago when someone asked, does more sweat equate to more fat loss? Absolutely not. No, it doesn't. Some people just sweat more than others. Okay. So more sweat doesn't equate to more fat loss. More soreness doesn't equate to a better workout. A better workout is making sure that you're stimulating the muscle fibers, not annihilating the muscle fibers, like Lee Haney used to say, and making sure that you're resting properly, hydrating properly, sleeping properly, recovering properly, and most importantly, training properly in order to receive optimal performance and results in the gym and with your physique and health. All right, last question. Nick, what's one piece of advice you wish everyone knew about fitness? Oh, that's a good question. It's not going to be as easy as you think. Okay. You need to be consistent with your training. You need to be dedicated to the gym. You need to be dedicated to your diet. And you have to almost create like a tunnel vision and block out outside factors. Okay, because there's going to be a lot of noise, and especially in the age of social media now, where you're going to question things that you're doing. There's been times that I've done that where I've questioned myself because I'm like, well, look at that person, look at the results they're getting. Why am I not getting these results? So you start to play that game where you're comparing yourself to others, which I always tell clients, don't do that. Okay. Stay off social media when it comes to your health and fitness. Like if you find that you're following certain people that are offering some really sound advice and you feel like they're experts in their industry, by all means, follow them for sure, especially if they motivate you and they inspire you. Absolutely. But try not to compare yourself to others. Okay. And don't just go in there thinking that, hey, if I clean up my diet and I start training, I'm going to get great results in 3 to 4 weeks. You have to have realistic expectations. Okay. And you have to manage your goals accordingly. I mentioned that earlier. It's so important because I think a lot of times people go in, they're super motivated and they're inspired and they're like, I'm going to train 5 days a week. I'm going to make sure my diet's perfect. I'm going to meal prep. And they get motivated for 5 minutes and they fall off the wagon 3 days later. So rather than have these crazy, unrealistic expectations of yourself, set smaller goals. So, right now, I don't even care if I lose any weight or if I build any muscle. My goal right now is to get into the gym 3 days a week and make that your goal for the next 4 weeks. That's your goal. And then build off that goal. Okay, now my goal is I want to clean up my diet a little bit. So I'm going to take out that morning muffin I have every day. I'm going to replace it with a bowl of oatmeal. I'm going to replace it with some omega-3 eggs. Or I'm going to replace it with an avocado, whatever it may be. And make that your goal for the next month. And then you slowly start to change bad habits and turn them into good habits. But I've seen it time and time again for people who just, they really think it's going to be easy. And they think, of course, I'm just going to go to the gym and I'm just going to train and I'm just going to eat clean and I'm going to have my smoothies. I'm going to have my fruit. I'm going to have meal prep and I'm going to get my six pack in 6 weeks. No problem. It's not going to happen because you're forgetting that along the way, the hardest part is up here. It's not the physical part, it's up here. Like I mentioned earlier, 80% of the struggle is getting to the gym. It's not being in the gym, it's the getting to the gym. So you have to be able to prepare yourself and say, what's going to happen when I'm mentally burned out, when I'm too tired to get up out of bed early in the morning and go to the gym, or where I'm just like, I'd rather go for a few drinks with my buddies than go and do that cardio session. So how are you going to troubleshoot through those mental barriers? And that's what I mean by you can't kid yourself and think this is just going to be a cakewalk and hey, bodybuilders can do it and bodybuilders are Neanderthals. They can do it, so I can do it. No, this is 80% mental, okay? Both in the gym and in the kitchen. So you have to prepare yourself for that. And that's why I tell people all the time, especially beginners, set small goals. And then when you achieve those goals, you can build off those goals. I've talked in the past how people will come and they'll come for a consultation with me online. And they'll say, I want to get in the gym with you. I want to train 5 days a week. And I say, I don't advise that. You're brand new to the gym. Let's get you at 2 times a week. Sure, I'd love to take your money. I love it. You're in here to do with me 5 days a week. That's great for my business. But I'm going to be completely honest with you and transparent. It's not a good idea. It's setting yourself up for failure. In all my years of experience, this does not work well for people. We put together a blueprint. And I'm saying, look, I'm going to get you 2 days a week in the gym right now. That's our goal for the next 4 weeks. Then we're going to go from there. Okay. And that works. I promise you it works. Okay. You don't go from grade 1 to grade 12 overnight. Okay. You don't go from elementary school to university within a week. You need to do it properly. You need to do it. You need to take a systematic approach. Okay. Small goals turn into bigger goals, turn into large goals. Okay. So start small. Don't kid yourself, think this is going to be easy. Prepare for not the physical barriers, but the mental barriers. The physical barriers are going to happen, of course. People get tired physically. You might hit a plateau for weight, but what always gives out first before the body is always the mind. In my experience with working with the general population, it's always the mind. So prepare yourself up here and you'll be ready down here physically. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, June the 2nd. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business here in Vancouver, British Columbia, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia, my online coaching business outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. I really do appreciate all the support and feedback that I get from each and every one of you. Thank you all again, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.